Hey guys, and welcome to Smart Women Read Romance, a book review podcast where we fangirl over all things romance. I'm Jessin.
And I'm Juliet.
Today we'll be reviewing The Intimacy Experiment by Rosie Danan. Technically a standalone, but it's a follow-up to the remake. But before we dive in, make sure that you subscribe to the podcast on your preferred podcast platform, and please rate and review us. If you want more romance discussion, follow us on our social media pages at SW Read Rom, join our Facebook group, The Spoon Zone, and follow my YouTube channel, Jessin Reads Romance. If you'd like some podcast extras, become a patron of the podcast on Patreon, where we have extra content, including exclusive episodes, and we give away free stickers, books, and bookmarks. The Read Romance enamel pins are available on my Etsy shop, SW Read Rom, and shout out to all of our lovely, lovely patrons. We appreciate and love the support.
Love you guys.
Also, for this month, our patrons voted, so we have a spinner wheel, because I'm obsessed with spinner wheels, okay? Don't tease me. And we alternate between like historical, paranormal, all that. This month it's historical, and the spinner wheel picked Viking romance.
Yes.
And so we had some Viking romance suggestions, and a Joanna Lindsay was actually picked. It's like her Hardred Viking family or whatever. I forgot what it was called. Hold on, let me put it. Fires of Winter. Fires of Winter is our book that we will be reviewing this month.
It sounds awesome.
And we'll be reviewing it on Patreon on May 25th, just to let you guys know. I'm excited. It'll be my second Joanna Lindsay's. First Joanna Lindsay for you?
I feel like didn't we read another one together? I feel like we read the last one together. If not, it's my first one. No, I'm thinking Lorraine Heath.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
I've only read Gentle Rogue, the one that they recently had recovered, and they put it in that new mass market size, like the bigger mass market size. Yeah. Anyway.
So no, this is my first. I don't read a lot of the older authors.
I try to incorporate them since I buy them, because I have to justify my eBay habits. I mean,
all of your step back obsessions.
And some of the beautiful covers, like that one has a really pretty cover and stuff. So I mean, got to get it in somewhere. But on another note, recently it was brought to our attention that Sanditon has been renewed for seasons 2 and 3, I believe.
Seasons 2 and 3. However,
in a new development that we just discovered before we started recording this podcast,
Theo James will not be returning. So what the ever-living fuck?
And we know it's probably because he had some scheduling conflicts.
Right.
We know it's probably a Theo James cannot appear, and it wasn't like a writer's choice to not include him. And it's not like I blame Theo James, but I also am just kind of like, do we want a reboot of Sanditon if Theo James is not there? I'm not saying that they couldn't pull a storyline off, because they could, but half the appeal was their romance.
Well, and he even said, the reason he liked the way it ended, because he did, the fairy tale did not have the happy ending or something like that. And I'm like, dude.
Unconventional stuff like that. And I'm just kind of like, no, we want conventional. Thank you. We would like the romance.
Y'all literally kissed on the cliff and left us at a cliffhanger, and then he went off with the wife or whatever. And so now there's big debate, because I'm a part of a couple of Sanditon groups.
Is there an uproar?
Yes, there is an uproar, and now there's debate, will they replace him and Sydney Parker will still be a character, or will they basically marry him off and we never see him again, and then she either, I guess, goes on the route with the architect, or some other new romantic interest.
So what would your preferred course of action be if we can't have Theo James, which we can't?
I would rather they replace Sydney Parker, honestly.
That's my same conclusion for this, because I understand they would have to, even replacing an actor and not drawing attention to hey, this is a different actor. We're just going to assume that this has been the actor the whole time. You would still have to create a bond between the audience and the new actor, which is fine since they're renewed for seasons 2 and 3. And I think that they could do that, honestly.
I think that they could.
I would rather them recast his character and still have that, because that storyline is the most interesting storyline. Yeah. So I'm just kind of
we've seen this in other shows where they recast, and it's you love the new member just as much.
And you don't watch soap operas, do you?
No.
But I know that, my mom does. And I know that in soap operas, they recast characters all the time. Yeah. There's new people for the same character all the time. So don't tell me it can't be done.
That's Dr. Rosenblum. No, it isn't. Yes, it is.
I'm telling you, my mom watches Young and the Restless, and I'll catch glimpses every once in a while whenever she's watching her recorded episodes, and I'm just did they just call him that name? I thought somebody else played him. They're like,
Jack.
Oh yeah, that was the old one. I'm like, what?
This is the new Jack. Okay, he's hotter. We like him better.
Ooh.
I don't know. I'm making shit
So
up.
anyway, I think I would have preferred, like, just for that character development, that the relationship to still be there. Theo James is beautiful, honestly. There's no one else like Theo James, but I could be attached to another actor, so give me him. Give me him.
There are plenty of beautiful, beautiful men out there who could play that role, that brooding, dark nobleman.
Yes.
Like Sidney Parker was just an excellent character, and they built this entire romance in season 1. How can we just say, oh, and now he's going to marry the villainess and be happy? You know, like, no. It's just going to happen. Sorry. They got to replace him and then just continue on with the storyline.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, it definitely, in my opinion, it wouldn't do as well if they completely just like Sidney Parker has faded into the background and we'll never see his character again. You know, I think that it just won't. I mean, I say that, and what if it like turns into the greatest show ever? But you know, expectations from readers / viewers are. Yeah. We like to have our opinions.
What did you think of the architect guy? Did you like?
I liked him, but I never was like, he's endgame.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You have your person where it's like, she belongs with him.
He's a nice guy.
And like, you're nice and I like you and I would like you to have an HEA, but not with her. Yeah.
Speaking of nice guys, this Ethan is a nice guy.
Guys.
That, I did root for and fell in love with. 100%.
So this was Juliet's first read of the Intimacy Experiment, and you have not read The Roommate.
No.
I have read The Roommate. I didn't particularly care for The Roommate. It wasn't my favorite. I had some issues with like characters and story, and we won't get into that, but that was her debut. I'm always like advocating, like I give authors at least 3 shots to convince me that I like their writing and stuff. So it really wasn't, it was a no-brainer whenever an arc became available for the Intimacy Experiment, because Naomi was a character in The Roommate. And actually, she was one of my favorite characters from The Roommate. So I was like, oh, she gets a romance. I was like, this is great. Immediately requested the arc. I read it, and I was just kind of like, it was one of those things where I was like, I didn't have like any expectations toward it. It was just like, this is a book I'm going to read. And then after I was done, and I had read it so far in advance from release day that I was just kind of like, I need to talk about this with people. Why have I shot myself in the foot? I can't talk.
Wait.
So anyway, needless to say, I love this book a lot. Like, it's going on a lot of my end of the year list for books and characters, because I really, really, really enjoyed the story, and I really, really enjoyed the characters. And I think that Rosie Dannon's writing, it was just like top notch in this book.
It's amazing. Look, one thing that where it touched me, it's like beyond the romance. There's so much like life learning, you know, life philosophy about love in general, you know, not just romantic love, but love and how you treat other people and
building connections and being vulnerable.
Like that whole intimacy idea of, being vulnerable and being open and trusting and trustworthy. And I was just kind of like, like I told you, like earlier off camera, off mic, is that, like, there were moments where I would read a passage and I would just kind of sort of stop and like let it sink in. I was like, fuck, man, like
that's deep.
That was deep, bro. You know, like seriously.
I haven't highlighted in a book this frequently in a long time. Like, I had so many highlights, and in fact, we normally don't do quotes anymore. We were pretty heavy on the quotes when we first did the podcast.
Yeah.
But we normally don't do quotes anymore. But I have written down quite a few. So I apologize in advance if we wax poetic about things that characters say, because they were really good. So before we jump into the spoiler sections, I'm going to give you a little glimpse into this book with an introduction with the characters, because I really love them. So our heroine, Naomi Grant, it's not her real name. This is her kind of like her stage name. She's adopted it. She shed her old identity whenever she was 18, and she became a porn star. So she is a former sex worker, but she is now the co-CEO to a like body positive, sex positive website. And sex education website, talking about like intimacy and like, you know, discovering your own pleasure. Lots of like kind of like self-help type of tutorials and stuff like that, which we see a glimpse of in The Roommate. That's whenever they're starting to build it up. So she is co-CEOs with like Josh and Clara. So she's also went back to school to go get her master's master's in like psychology and stuff.
She's very well educated.
She really dreams of having that like student teacher platform. She wants to teach. She wants to educate, and nobody's really giving her a shot.
Right.
So,
that's the longing we see the most in the very beginning, is her longing to be taken seriously as a teacher. You know?
And how, you know, she's always ready to be on the offensive instead of the defensive because she's expecting people to think less of her and stuff like that. And we'll get into more detail in the spoiler section. But then we have our hero, Ethan. And Ethan is a hot rabbi. What an interesting setup with a former sex worker and a hot rabbi. He is also a former high school physics teacher, which I love. He didn't plan on becoming a rabbi. Right. This is kind of something that he fell into after the death of his father. It's something that he discovered. And so he is a part of Reform Judaism. And also, I want to let our listeners know, Juliet and I are both Christians. We are really kind of like unfamiliar with the nuances of Judaism. So anything that we say that could possibly be wrong, it's not the fault of the author. It's totally our fault if we get things wrong. We apologize
in advance.
In advance, just in case, you know, it's totally us. But before we do get to the spoiler section, I kind of want to wax poetic about Naomi's character, because I think this is something that you and I have in common, that we have a bit of difficulty with pricklier heroines.
Right.
Like, it's not the type of heroine that we normally gravitate towards, the heroine with the chip on her shoulder. And I know that there's a lot of conversation in Romancelandia on, like, we need to have more heroines that are able to be these kind of, like, bitchy heroines, because there's so many, like, asshole heroes. Right. And, like, we totally get that.
Before you begin, let me just say really quickly that so I had to warm up to Naomi. Like, Jessen, I read like the first like 25, 30% or whatever. And I was like telling Jessen, I'm like, I don't know. But y'all, push through if you're having those feelings. Cause I promise you, like, the transformation of Naomi for me, even though she never changes like wholly as a person, but the intimacy part and the vulnerability part definitely comes into play. And she has every reason to have this sort of shell of protection.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I think, that when heroines like this work for me, it's because that they have a good reason to be, and they have a good reason to be prickly. And I don't mean that they have to have like some ultra traumatic and horrifying backstory. Like, please don't do that to me, authors. The angst level, I can only take so much. You don't have to like make these characters be like gone through the absolute ringer for me to identify with them, even with them being prickly. But they're at least partially self-aware, even if they try to distance themselves from their inner voice that's telling them like, oh, I'm being unreasonable, I'm being too harsh. Like, at least they're a little bit self-aware. And Naomi is always self-aware in this book. Especially on my reread, I was really looking for it. And like, she really is. She just kind of like, oh, well, they're reacting exactly how I thought that they were going to react. And instead of me getting hurt about it, I'm just going to revert back to what I normally do, which is go on the offensive, being very like, not inflammatory, but being very like, I'm going to catch these people off guard with how shameless I am with my sexuality type of thing.
Right.
And it really, 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 really works. And I'm just kind of like, ugh. I love it because it's the possibility of future vulnerability that makes me stick with them, even when I want to slap them silly in the beginning for being like, why can't you just open up? It's like, no, but this is, and like Naomi does it perfectly, and I love her for it, which is why she's one of my favorite heroines that I've read this year. So I love her. Anyway. All right, guys, if you've not read The Intimacy Experiment, you should totally read it and then come back and chat with us. Okay, guys, we're in the spoiler section.
Okay.
The opening.
Yes.
The conference.
Okay, y'all. So she's at a conference, and of course they're going, and it's like, it opens where they're going around the room and introducing themselves and like what they do for a living. And there's like people from all walks of life. And in her head, she's basically going, shit, fuck, damn, shit, fuck, damn.
Yeah, it's like,
she knows once it gets to her.
I work in business. I work in computers. I
work in biophysicist, you know, like all this shit. She's like, I know when it gets to me, like, you know, we're sex education site business, and I'm a former sex worker. She knows the response she's going to get, which is,
it's not the ultra progressive audience that she knows would
probably
be
more open.
be more open to what, but so she's expecting for them to have some, preconceived notions
so
about her as soon as she
immediately putting up
mentions what she
walls.
does.
What I love about this scene, though, is like she immediately is putting up walls, but at the same time she's like, fuck it, I'm just going for it, and she lays it out there.
I think that the hurt really comes across because she was so excited about like this opportunity, and hopefully trying to connect with some people who would give her a chance, because she's been kind of like putting out feelers to community colleges on being like an adjunct professor and stuff, and they've all just been like, no.
Yeah.
Even though she's qualified, extremely qualified to do this. And she's just kind of like disheartened by...
and she wants to teach about modern intimacy in the modern world, And it's a great concept. Like, I have to say, the premise behind this book. So what happens is Ethan comes up and introduces himself. First of all, she's like, hello,
after she
hotness.
Goes on a rant in front of the whole...
about how no one has ever given her a shot. She's, she basically is like touting all of her qualifications and why basically people are assholes. And she doesn't say it rudely, but she says it very frankly.
I love it whenever she introduces herself, because she's like, hi there, I'm Naomi Grant, a sex educator. And she's like noticing all the reactions of the audience. And she's like, this one woman's eyes popped wide at the mention of sex. And I honestly, this was another reason why I really, really, really loved this book, was because there were so many parallels on the reaction that Naomi got saying that she was a sex educator with the response that people who read romance get whenever we're just kind of like, what kind of books did you read? We read romance. And everybody's like, oh my God, those porn books.
Mommy porn.
So gross.
I'm so fucking tired of that.
Exactly. So I felt her frustration on that level, as like, we are also not taken seriously because we read books that show intimate scenes. And I think that one of the reasons why this book like really landed with me is because, like Juliet was saying, it explores more than sexual intimacy. It explores different aspects of intimacy. Yeah. And I thought that Rosie Danan did a phenomenal job.
So the setup is that Ethan comes up and introduces himself. And first of all, she's like, who is this? Wait, you're a rabbi? Like, hot rabbi, And he's like super cute, but he wants her to come and teach at basically his synagogue. Like these, and I was thinking, it's just the coolest idea. It's the coolest idea. Have you read anything even close to this?
No.
I haven't.
I have not.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just felt the whole concept behind the book was very cool.
And Ethan is a new rabbi. He's only been there at his synagogue for about a year, but it's a failing synagogue. They're losing. They're losing. What are they called? Not parishioners.
Congregants.
They're losing congregants. Like, they're just leaking them. And like, he's trying to find new ways to connect with like a younger audience. Like, he's trying to tap into the audience that aren't very like religious, and he wants to show them that they're like inclusive and they're thinking about, their everyday lives and stuff like that, and how does religion fit in with all that. And he wants Naomi to start a seminar on intimacy, like give some speeches, and that's how he wants to connect. And he comes off as such just an optimistic person. And I love her reaction to him at first, because she's not realizing that he's a rabbi at first, and she's just admiring how, he must be a model. Like, he says he's a former physics teacher, and she kind of tunes out, and she's like, I bet you like he was an extra in some Hollywood movie or something. And she is thinking he's so hot. So whenever he approaches her, at first she thinks, he's approaching me because he finds me attractive too. Yes. So like, I could use a good fuck. For it. Yeah. I could use a good fuck right now. So I love how she's totally disarmed that he's like, I'm a rabbi and I would like you to come teach. I would like to give you a platform to teach. You said that you really want to teach. Yeah. Come teach at my synagogue. It'll be informal. We'll use like the community center. We'll use the community center and it'll be great. And she just kind of like, no.
Yeah, she's like, that's a joke. I don't think so. So she basically turns him down. It's so sad because, y'all, Ethan is like the sweetest. And the funny thing is I'm usually like, I don't know if I've ever read a book with a beta hero, really, that I can't remember one that I have read that I've really liked or that I have read, but I fell so hard for Ethan. Like, I can't even tell you.
I like quite a few cinnamon roll heroes.
Yeah, cinnamon roll, but they're usually cinnamon roll alphas. They're like more dominant and aggressive, but like super mushy and do like sweet things and stuff. Ethan is like truly like a beta. Cinnamon roll beta.
Yeah, he is. And like, but the thing is, as people, both of us, we gravitate towards the more heavily kind of like alpha male types that do have vulnerabilities, because we don't want the alpha holes. We want like the alphas who are also gone for their heroin.
Exactly.
The sweet ones. But Ethan knocked it out of the park for me from the very first. He's so like disarming. Absolutely. Naomi even mentions that a couple times, like, why is he so endearing? How dare you?
Stop being so adorable and so, and one time she just goes so, and he like can't even get it out, you know?
Because she just like, she's never been confronted with somebody who is absolutely ready for every single time that she tries to make him uncomfortable. He's just not. And I love it so much because he never, ever, ever judges her for what she's done. And every time she thinks, oh, he's going to trip up if I like mention sex to him or whatever. And he doesn't. He's just like, yeah, no, fine. Like, talk about that. That's totally
even her bisexuality. Like, she's like, he's like, oh, and I think he doesn't say it or anything, but in his head, he's like, wait, she has dated men, because he's still like hoping he has a chance.
Later on, there's a scene where I think. Well, no, not the ex one. Whenever they're dating, later on, there's a scene whenever there's like a speed dating scene, and she talks about like finding a woman attractive or something, and he's like, oh, so that's like you prefer to be with women. And she's like, I prefer all sexes. I'm bisexual and stuff. And he's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And like completely like okay with everything. And I love that. And some people may be like, oh, that's probably not realistic. Like to have this person who's just like completely accepting of everything that she's ever done and never questions it and never wavers. And I'm like, I don't fucking care. I don't care. I love that this character is written this way. I love how accepting he is and how he doesn't blink an eye.
Honestly, all of those things to me make him to be like a true, genuine, like, church leader. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, the kind you want. The kind of rabbi you would want. Who is just, like, he is about love. As a matter of fact, I'm going to read one of the quotes that Justin took for us. Because it's one of Ethan's, and it's, I want to give people a reason to believe in themselves, each other, and something more. And that is what he's all about. And at one point she goes, oh, you're an optimist. Like, it's just like this terrible, it's like, oh my God. Because she's very much a realist, pragmatist. Yes. And I just found that fascinating. I was like, that's why I love Ethan. He's such an optimist and hopeful and like all those things, but also genuine and just loving and caring everyone deserves love. He says it doesn't matter what they've done. Everyone deserves love. And that just like got to me about him.
I loved him so much. So even though Naomi does turn him down initially, later on she's talking to her business partner. Yeah, she's talking and she realizes, okay, I have to pursue this opportunity. This is an opportunity. Why am I looking, a gift horse in the mouth? I might as well just try. So she shows up at the JCC and she ends up by talking to Ethan. I love how Ethan also he's friends with like a lot of like older people, because that's what makes up a lot of his congregation is older people. Yeah. That's what's left of his congregation,
like
really.
Maury. I love Maury with his chess game. Oh, no.
I love it so much.
Maury's getting out the chess game.
And so I also really like how Ethan kind of gives her carte blanche to set up the curriculum for the seminars. He's like...
And she can't believe it.
Yeah, she's like, oh my God, like, I have so many ideas. Like, this is great. And even whenever she emails it to him to like run it by him, he had like one suggestion to incorporate how, maybe this could fit in with like religion, not as in religion is, you don't have to like preach about religion, but just being like religion could be a source of like camaraderie, community, stuff like that. Right. And I really like that as well. So their first, I really love all of the titles for all of the lectures. Yes. And there's always like a headline for the lecture. Yes. That's always like amazing. Yeah. I won't go through all of them. You should definitely read it so that you can get all of it. And honestly, the first one really got to me because I was just like, oh my God, I love it. They're talking about basically like the pre-dating stage. Like you have to know what you want and also identify what in yourself is like holding you back from being in a relationship, because people like to self-sabotage. They like to like put up excuses why this won't work before they even get the ball rolling, which I identified a lot with. I was like, oh no, Naomi's calling me out.
Calling you out. calling you out.
It was so freaking good. And I love the response. Like, at first, it's like, in any type of situation, everyone's kind of like reluctant to participate. Yeah. Nobody really wants to talk.
There's only 14 there at the first talk. They're all spread out. We got the cute little Molly girl, and then like the dudes in the back who actually become cool guys, you know?
Yes, everyone's like there for their different reasons and stuff, but mainly they want to find connection, and not necessarily, they're not like attending to find like the one. They're looking for a sense of like community, and I really like how it does become like all the originals that first started attending, like they're still there. They're still freaking there.
And they're like
Craig,
very protective of her and Molly, of Ethan, and very devoted. One thing that I thought was really cool is it opened up where she's like, okay, because she had her script and she's like, fuck this. I've got to set this aside and I've got to talk to them. And so she's like, let's talk about some of your, like the reasons you don't like to date. And then like, let's talk about some of your bad experiences. So
your bad dates.
And this is when it opened up. It's like, this is why I like when girls, all guys are pigs. You know, like,
and Naomi's like, and girls too. It's not exclusive to guys.
I thought that was really good too. Like, don't just bash all the men because, you know.
She's really good at being off the cuff whenever she's talking, because it's more real than like, oh, this is a lecture I've set up. And so she performs better that way. And she's really that type of person that feeds off of like the interaction with her audience. And so that's the type of people that, you know, like to be improv and like have impromptu conversations and stuff like that. And so I really enjoyed all those scenes where they're going through like the steps of intimacy, and it was just absolutely amazing. But like Ethan's thoughts about her being up and like talking, how she's so like enigmatic. And I love this one quote that Ethan says. He's like, there's something brilliant about her. Like, she was painted in brighter colors than everyone else. And the way that he thinks about her, guys, is absolutely so spoon-worthy.
He's enraptured.
And I am a personal fan of mutual pining. Yes. And I feel like in this book, there's a lot of mutual pining because it's so adorable where it's just kind of like, God, you guys have so much feelings for each other. But I never like felt like it wasn't.
Like trying not to, but like, oh my God, that beard. Why is he so, like everything about him. It is. I love to hear, I agree with you. I love to hear the mutual thoughts going on in their heads. And just how they're both so infatuated. Like even her business partner, Clara, tells her, it's like, oh, you've got a crush. And so she's like, oh, basically we get Clara involved because she's like the media expert. And so that's the
Naomi, when Ethan gets pushed back from the board, gets pushed back from the board, there's the head of the board is named Jonathan, and he's the one that has like some concerns. Like, are you sure that it is, you know, the optics of hiring a former porn star to give this lecture? Like, do we want that associated with us? Do you think that this is going to bring bad attention and stuff? And I think that and Ethan's response is just being like, hey, I've given you a chance. I've already warned you. Like, don't talk about her that way. So like, this conversation is over if you can't be respectful. I'm completely confident in her suitability to teach, and her qualifications are more seminars. Like she's overqualified to be doing this for us. So like, I don't want to hear anything.
We're lucky to get her. She's been in like Forbes and shit. Like she's
like 30 under 30 and stuff like that. Like, oh my God, we're so lucky. And I love how Ethan just like will not stand for anybody trying to bash her. And he just kind of like, we're doing this. And so after that, Naomi was thinking about quitting after their first lecture because it wasn't super set in stone at that point. And also she knows that she has this attraction to Ethan. I also love how in the first lecture, whenever she was talking about how like know where you're self-sabotaging. And she's like, for example, I find myself attracted to people that I know that I can't have because it's kind of like, it can't really get off the ground. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to go anywhere if I know that they can't have them.
Some fun, and then it's going to end at some point.
Exactly. And so this is what she's feeling for Ethan. She's like, Ethan is off limits. He's a rabbi. Yeah. There's something where, you know, religious leaders, they're people who are in the public eye. They're expected to behave on like a different level than everybody else. They're under constant scrutiny. And so she knows there's no way that a relationship could work because everybody would be judging like, oh, the rabbi is dating a former porn star. It's definitely all eyes on us type of thing. And so she's just kind of like, I'm just going to quit. And she almost did quit until she overhears Jonathan talking to Ethan like that. And she's just like, you know what? We're going to do this. Wrong. This seminar is going to bring in so many people. We're going to show them. And he was like, oh, okay. And
I love it kind of dug into her competitive side. And
she's like,
screw
she
this
loves
noise.
proving people wrong. She loves it.
Yeah,
and so
I
she's
like
just
that
like,
too.
I'm bringing on a PR person. She's going to do a pro bono because she owes me some favors. So
to impress friend and business partner.
Yes, let's meet for coffee. And that's what her. She talks to Clara in the car.
I think Clara sees her and she's like, oh, I get it now. When she sees him, she's like, yeah, the rabbi you're pretending you don't have a crush on.
I love how in the conversation, whatever, he was just like, she was trying to warn Clara, like, don't let him, his disarming good looks, like, he's maybe hotter than Josh. And Clara's like, I don't know about that. Like, because of course, like, you think who you're attracted to is the hottest, whatever.
Right.
But she also is just like, you don't understand. He's like, aggressively nice, and I laughed so hard at that.
That was so aggressive
because it was so apt. Like, Ethan is aggressively nice.
Yeah, and she talks about how women just like can't help but fall in love with him just, from his smile. And then later, even in his point of view, he says he's never had to work for women. They just do seem to like him. And it's like, dude, because you're so incredibly wonderful. Like, they can't help themselves.
I love Clara's teasing for Naomi because Naomi's not the person to let everybody in. So, like, it took a while for, like, Clara to be considered Naomi's friend. And so she's like, oh, like, you're thinking about it. Like, you definitely have a crush. Like, the hand-holding, picnic in the park, do this whole astrological chart to see if you're compatible level. Naomi goes, that's the grossest thing you've ever said to me. That's the grossest She's like, I don't like him like that.
No.
I love her denial. And when they get in the coffee shop, I love how Clara's also being like nudging, hint.
Yeah.
I've heard so much about you. It's so nice to finally meet the guy that Naomi can't stop talking about.
And he's just like flummoxed.
And he's like, completely I see that there's a current between these two going on. But, like, I'm not sure what it is.
He's so cute when he's, like, completely, like, thrown for a loop with stuff like that. He's like, like, he's just the sweetest. Oh, my God.
So tongue-tied around Naomi because she's so beautiful and so, just, like, comfortable. At least she definitely looks comfortable in her skin, and he admires that about her so much. And so he frequently gets tongue-tied. At one point, he even admits it, like straight up admits it. And he is like, yeah, I'm not usually this tongue tied. And she thinks to herself, like, wow, that's extremely flattering. He's basically saying that I'm tying him up in knots.
Yeah.
So I just love those little moments where Ethan pretty much disarms her. And I think that the gradualness of their change in relationship and stuff, it's so beautiful to witness because she is really becoming friends with him, and she's getting to know him and admiring the way that his outlook on life whenever they talk about, like, for the speed dating thing.
Yes.
Because
let's get to the speed dating.
Molly was just kind of like, hey, like, you said our assignment is to, set up a date, but, like, where do you even meet people?
I thought
like,
this was so good how they use the actual people in the seminar to sort of move the plot forward. You know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly.
It was really good. Yeah. So Molly's like, can we have a date night, a singles night or something?
I love how Ethan's in charge of it, and they go to this dive bar, and, like, he's like, I can totally plan this. Like, we can't expect Naomi to, give up more of her time. Like, we're already imposing on her.
Yeah.
And, like, I like how Molly had, like, emailed Naomi basically being like, you better come tonight. Like,
come
basically.
and help us.
And it's good because it would have totally flopped because, like, it was just it's not going good.
There was, like, 5 people, including Maury, And
I love how Ethan's sister arrives. I love Ethan and Leah's relationship because it's one of the, like, most beautiful and true types of sibling love, like ribing each other. Oh, there's a scene later on. I can't wait to talk about it, guys. I told you I highlighted a lot, but it was so much fun because I think that Naomi asks, what is your, like, opening one-liner and stuff? And Ethan's like, well, like, what gets you out of bed in the morning? And, like, he talks about, like, what gets him out of bed and talking about how, like, those, like, simple moments where you connect with, like, random strangers and you know that you've made, like, an impression on their whole entire day. And she just kind of like,
oh my God.
Damn.
I know, like, I get up to go make money, like, and I love the way at some point she talks about how he's different in that she's like, yeah, you like to help people. It's like, well, you help people too. She goes, I help people to make money for me and to build my business. You just help people, period.
Yeah, like, it's my job to help people, but you would help people who
just care.
You're not even technically obligated to help.
Even people you don't like, you do it.
Like, you don't even have to like them.
He's incredible.
And I also like how she sometimes accidentally kind of makes sex jokes, but he never like is super embarrassed in her. She makes those sex jokes.
I think she's trying to throw him off a little bit.
She is. It's kind of like she kind of throws out a couple jabs to see if he'll be scared away. Yeah. You know? Like a prickly little cactus. It's kind of like, do you still want to hug me even if I'll poke you? I don't know. So, also, while this is all going down, while she's teaching all these seminars, she does get an email from an invitation from her old high school to come lecture about the future of sex education. Right. And so she's just kind of like thinking about her bad experience with her high school. And so we finally get the backstory of like what pushed her in to going into the porn industry.
It's so sad because it's a total cyberbullying situation, sort of.
Yeah, she trusted her ex-boyfriend with a nude picture, which was shared throughout school. He violated her trust, shared it with everything, and she was slut-shamed at school. And even we come to find out later that the secretary in the office, she overheard the secretary saying like how she was a slut and she deserved that. And it was just kind of like, it's so awful to think about because I remember whenever I was in high school, some girl who I was in my grade, that happened to her. Picture that she sent to her boyfriend was shared by him. And it's so like thinking about it now, like it was so like scandalous whenever you're in high school, like, oh my God. But like looking back now, it's like how uncomfortable, how terrible, to happen. Been. Yeah, exactly. I couldn't even imagine. It's so heartbreaking. And so she kind of has built up these walls so that she's never caught off guard by somebody who she thinks she trusts again.
Yeah, and what triggers it is there's some douchebag at the bar who's basically like, oh, I know you. You're that porn star. Show me your tits.
This interaction is so awful.
Ethan, it's terrible.
It just proves her point. It proves her point that people are assholes about what she's done, and they expect her to
continue to be whatever they believe she is.
Exactly.
Because she was a sex worker. And so Ethan takes up for her and is like, take it back right now, whatever, or let's take it outside, y'all. Okay. The dude be like, fine, let's go outside. He goes outside and Ethan walks out. And the whole time I love this moment because she sort of freezes because she's like reliving the sort of the trauma she experienced. Because he says something that triggered like what she'd experienced back in high school. And that's when we get that backstory.
Whenever she mentioned that, she was just kind of like, I didn't even mean for these holes to appear in my armor, but those words that usually would bounce off my shiny metal armor have found an opening. And like, this is why I don't open up to people. This is why I don't form like, easy friendships. Like she's opening up to all the people.
And this is the part where I really started falling in love with her. Like this moment was exactly where I just fell in love with Naomi because despite all of her intentions to keep that wall up, she couldn't with Ethan.
No.
Like, she just could not.
I love how Ethan is just kind of like, I've never fought before in my life.
Y'all, this is the funniest fucking thing I've ever read. He tries to talk the dude out of, like, using his intellectual ability, which I fucking love smart guys. Y'all know I have a weakness for smart guys. So he's trying to talk him down. He's like, I really don't want to get hit in the face.
Yeah, okay, like, maybe this is, maybe this wasn't a good
so then he's like, do you really want to go to prison and get it for a felony? And he's like, and he starts talking about his crustaceans on his shorts, his lobster shorts. And the dude's like, what?
I love the way that Ethan tries to de-escalate the situation.
Yes.
And it almost succeeds because you're just kind of like, okay, this guy's thinking about like, maybe I don't want to fight in public.
I want to get in a cab and go home.
Yeah, maybe I just want to let this drop. And so Ethan's like turning back to go into the bar. And then the guy has to have his fucking last word and says something disgusting about Naomi. And I love how Ethan just kind of like, well, we're doing this. All right. Like, I'm going to throw a punch.
And immediately he gets knocked to the ground, y'all.
And then Naomi comes out and throws an elbow to this guy's nose, breaking it.
Breaks his nose, knocks his ass out.
The bouncer across the street comes in to intervene.
Finally's like, hey. And
but I love how he was just like, honestly, I knew that you really didn't need me to defend you. I just couldn't help that reaction. I couldn't
help it.
And like, I'm sorry for assuming that you couldn't take care of yourself. And she was like, you know what? Doesn't bother me as much as you think it would.
Yeah.
Like, it was kind of nice to have him come to her defense, even though she didn't technically need him to take charge of the situation. Obviously, she did fine on her own, but she was just kind of like, it was nice that you cared.
Oh my God. Later in her point of view, I love the feelings she has about him defending her. Like, when has anybody ever defended her like that?
I love it so much.
But here's the thing: they go inside and they start drinking. They get like, some ice.
He gets a little shwasty.
He gets a little wasted. So she has to drive him home, y'all. He's the cutest drunk in the whole wide world. And he starts confessing feelings.
He does.
Like, he's like, you're so beautiful.
Yeah.
Just
he's like, and he's like, oh no.
I didn't mean to say that.
I'm just a little bit drunk and stuff. And she just finding him super adorable. And she brings him inside and stuff. And also early in that night as well, I really love, because like, damn, Ethan, why are you so endearing and lovely? When Naomi and Ethan were talking about like what do they want in a partner, and Ethan says, I want someone
they're strong where I'm weak.
Yeah, I want someone where they're strong where I'm weak, and vice versa, like the missing puzzle piece to you. Right. And I'm just like, that's so beautiful, because if you look at each other, she's strong where you're weak, and you're strong where she's weak, and I love it. And so they kind of have an almost kiss. They do. And instead of kissing, he blurts out that he wants her to help him
find someone.
Because while they were speed dating, Ethan starts getting a bunch of texts, like being like, oh, Rabbi Ethan, I didn't know, or Rabbi Cohen, I didn't know that you were in the dating market again. I have a sister's cousin's best friend that is totally single. I'll set you up. New York. Yeah. Like what? He's such a hot rabbi, and everybody, he's
so shy.
Greatest thing to hit the market in a long time, right?
It's like they're coming out of the woodworks, bringing their Jewish daughters.
I love his conversation with Leah.
Oh my God.
When he's like, so I might have like messed up. And she's like, well, what did you do? And he was like, well, I think there was an almost kiss with Naomi. And I love how she's teasing. She's like, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, like, I'm sure the hot girl, like, how did you know that she wanted to kiss you and stuff? And he was like, well, we were very close. And she was like, oh my God, you're very, and he's just like, shut up. Let me tell the whole story. Like, the way that this conversation is constructed is so absolutely perfect. And it just like demonstrates like that sibling kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
And I love it. So, he confesses, he's like, so I definitely meant to ask her out, and I ended up by basically saying, can you set me up with someone else? And Leah was just kind of like, okay, you could be honest and just be like, hey, I was intimidated by your hotness. I'm so sorry. Can we actually go out for dinner or a drink?
Right.
And Ethan's like, yeah, that sounds like so straightforward and nice, but he doesn't want to take that route.
Right.
And so Leah ends up by dialing Naomi's number. Oh my God, I love this scene, because he was like, he's like, if I was going to call her, I'm not doing it now in front of you. And she goes, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Leah grabbed his cell phone while he was still holding the box, and he goes, don't. And she goes, oops, it's ringing. And he goes, like, are you kidding me? And he's not prepared to talk to Naomi, and so he kind of lies, and he's like, because she's like, oh, do you just want to talk now instead of like setting up a meeting later? And he's like, yeah, I can't because I'm on a boat right now. Yeah, it's so windy.
It is so windy, and cell.
So bye.
Yeah, bye. On a boat?
It is so absolutely funny. I love it. I love it. And even whenever he goes to try, I love these like awkward moments where he's like, maybe he's looking for clues that maybe Naomi could return the feelings. And whenever he's just kind of like, oh, she's very gung-ho about setting me up with somebody, so that must mean that she has no feelings, because if she felt something for me, she wouldn't be this, on board. But she's masking that. She's masking her jealousy. She's masking all those feelings and being like, I'm going to be a good friend and help it.
And she's like, and the sooner I can set him up with somebody, the sooner I can just like stop thinking about this relationship like it's not going to happen, right?
Yes. So, I love how she runs into Leah she starts going to another synagogue.
Yes. So let's talk about that for a second. So she starts going to another synagogue, and the reason she does is because she doesn't want him to think that she's doing this to impress him. And she really is curious about her faith again. And so she wants to relearn things. And they have these classes at another one where they teach them how to bake different things for the Jewish faith use in their ceremonies and stuff. And Leah's there. So I love how they sort of striking up conversations. And she's like, yeah, well, I'm looking for a girl for Ethan. She's like, oh, you're still doing that?
Yeah,
She's like,
I thought I told Ethan to take care of this and clear up this mess.
And obviously Naomi's like, okay, there's something underlying that. Like, I don't know what's happening.
Like, why did she say still? Like, I wouldn't still be on board with this. What?
Yeah.
But I like how Leah definitely does a little manipulation.
She's like, you know what? You should totally set him up with Amelia Green. That is like one of his former girlfriends.
Yeah, she like used to live in Atlanta. Now she's back in LA.
Yeah, and she's like playing softball. As a matter of fact, they play their
Ethan's team.
I think this weekend. Yeah, you should totally
go and scope her out and see if you can make a connection between them.
Yeah.
So Leah's like totally just wanting to force him in a situation that possibly Naomi would be jealous of the other girl.
Works.
So the baseball scene. I love how Ethan, one of his flaws is like he's really competitive.
So competitive, like he gets angry and he tries to mask his
trying
anger.
To not let Naomi see what a bad sport he is because he's
very bad sport.
She's not good at softball.
The first thing she notices is, so Maury got them all like legit softball, baseball uniforms, whatever. She's like, holy shit.
This is a real deal. This is serious.
Ethan in these tight baseball pants are going to kill me.
Apparently Ethan has a really fine butt.
Fine
in
ass.
The baseball
and like
pants.
all she can think about is his ass in those pants. And like, it's so funny. It's the funniest thing where she's like hoping he'll like get behind her and show her how to do the baseball thing. But he's all like, look, just watch me. Look, are you paying attention? Because her eyes keep wandering down to his ass. It's like, oh wait, yeah, I'm totally paying attention. You know, it is the cutest thing because it's the first time we really see her sort of like off her game and like
she's not completely in her element in this
right.
scene.
She's very out of her element. And see, again, this is where we see her very vulnerable. She's in a situation she's not used to. She's like really falling for the hot rabbi.
And whenever she goes change into her uniform, she does meet Amelia in the bathroom. And she just,
Amelia.
I love how she just kind of like, this is like the perfect counterpart to his rabbi.
They'd
this is
future
Jewish Mrs. Rabbi right here.
Yes, they would have beautiful, perfect babies together.
And she's very much interested in Ethan. 100%.
They have a conversation.
She's like, oh, maybe I should.
Yeah, and
Naomi's like, I'm not jealous.
Really there to check him out.
Oh yeah, she totally joined the softball team
to check out the hot rabbi that everybody's talking about.
So I love how the game's been going on. It's in the whatever inning, and Naomi's supposed to be next up to bat, but Ethan wants to change up the lineup, and she's just like, no, I want to go back in. Like she's been up to bat 4 times, never hit anything. Okay, because like the pitcher on the other team's really good, and Ethan just kind of like no, and she just like, watch me. And she starts cutting off the sleeves for her jersey. So she's mutilating the jersey. Yeah. And then so she gets out there and Ethan just kind of like, she's not even doing the stance I taught her how to do.
She's sticking her
Why is she wiggling so much?
Why is she wiggling her ass like that?
And then he goes, oh no, because he knows exactly what she's doing.
And Maury's like, we should have been doing this all along.
Like,
wow,
that. Why didn't we think of this that technique before? So she's using the distraction technique, and I love how like the pitcher who's been throwing fastballs this whole time throws like one like completely outside the box,
totally
like it's not. And so she backs up, she does some more wriggling, stretching, bending over, then she like rolls up her shirt and tucks it underneath her sports bra and stuff like that, stomach showing, and so she ends up by bunting the ball and making it to fucking first base, and she like looks at Ethan like,
hey,
who made it to first base now? Did you doubt me?
So cute.
It is adorable.
So, but then Ethan's up to bat. I know, then Ethan's up to bat, y'all. So he's like, oh my God, we could actually tie this game. He hits, and he's like totally ready to slam this out the park. He hits it so hard, it hits Naomi in the shoulder. He immediately drops the bat and runs to her and is like,
instead of first base.
And she's like, what are you doing? Go to first base. And he's like, are you okay? She's like, go to first base, you idiot. What are you doing? And so he gets out and he's pouting and upset and like.
And I love how she was just like, I thought you were obsessed with winning. And Ethan goes, I'm more obsessed with you. And like he blurts this out. And then he goes like. The collective you, not like you in particular, like everyone. I'm obsessed with everyone.
I'm obsessed with everybody.
It's the worst save ever.
On the team.
So after whenever the game's over and stuff, she point blank asked him, it's just like them like picking up the remnants of everything.
Are you interested in me? Yeah, this one they're in the shed. They're like putting the stuff away in the shed.
And she's like, are you attracted to me? And she's like, comes off as a little bit aggressive because she's like, am I reading the signs right? What's happening? I don't want to misinterpret anything. And he just kind of like, yes. And basically he's also saying like stuff like, and if it makes you uncomfortable, like, don't worry about it and stuff. And she's just like, shut up, kiss me.
Oh.
Their first
So
kiss.
good.
Their first kiss. It
Y'all,
was beautiful
it was so good.
and magical.
So beautiful.
And I love how, like, it turns, like, fiery, like, really quick and stuff. And Naomi's just kind of like, come with me. Like, and she's like, where are we going? She's like, to the beach. Because I love how the second they kiss, she's just kind of like, okay, well, we can't hide from this anymore. We have to address it head on. And like, she also knows how serious it is. So she goes to the beach and she sits down. She's like, so what's the plan? Like, what's the plan? Because we know that you being a rabbi and me with my former, job, we're going to be under a lot of scrutiny. Right. So what do you want to do? Like, cause that kiss, it seems like this would be a serious relationship, and Ethan's just kind of like, it is going to be.
He says, I could love you. He's just,
he does. He comes out and he's like, I know that, I don't want to come off too strong, but like, I'm just being real. I will not lie. And I even took a picture of myself because I'm just like, what is life? But I cried rereading the scene because he is so open and vulnerable at this moment.
Yes.
And I have to read what he says because he's so beautiful, because he's just kind of like, okay, well, if we're going to talk about this and if this is going to decide if we're going to go forward in the relationship, I might as well tell her exactly how I feel. And so he's also giving her an out, because in the way that Naomi thinks that she is a hindrance to his job and his, position as a religious leader and, somebody who's held up to a higher standard in their community, she's like, I'm a detriment to him. He, in the same way, is just kind of like, oh no, like dating me is something that's why he wasn't on the dating scene anyway, because he's just like, I know I'm a lot to take on for women. Like, it's not just me. Like, that's not the only thing that goes into this decision, is not just like, oh, I think he's hot and great. It's like, oh no, I'm going to date a rabbi, and I know that's a lot of baggage. And so he says, say the word and we can forget this ever happened. I'll pretend that I never thought about loving you. I'll look at you less and without so much longing. I won't forget that we kissed because, come on, you're you. But I promise not to think about it too much, just for a few seconds, so I can remember what it was like to feel transcendent. And I'm just like, Ethan, God. Why are you so amazing? And it plays out so beautifully. And she's just kind of like, okay, no, we're doing this. Yeah. Like, I don't want to give this up.
Well, Naomi's not an idiot. I mean, what man has ever just poured his heart out like that? Who is so genuine. He is the most genuine, and that is the word when I think of Ethan. He's the most genuine person. Like,
he wears his heart on his sleeve, like, for all the world to see. He's so beautiful. I also really like their first date and how it was not perfect.
Yeah.
I've said it before, I'll say it again. I really like first sex scenes that aren't perfect and first dates that aren't perfect. I like whenever, you're trying to make a really good impression, but you don't make a good impression, but it's still okay. Like, I like that. Yeah. And so she sends him a list of 3 restaurants. Hey, you pick the restaurant that we're going to go to. And whenever he texts her back, she's like, that's my least favorite restaurant. I don't like this restaurant. It was a test. It was a test.
Yeah, it's like they have 4 kinds of bone broth, like super like.
I love how it's immediately cleared up, because he quickly realizes, so this was a test? Like, you don't like this place? And she was like, well, no. And he was like, I only picked it because it was the closest commute, and I didn't want you to have to drive across town
late at night through all this traffic and be grumpy. Safety.
And she's like, so you picked this restaurant to save me the hassle of driving further away?
Yeah.
And he's like, yes. So she's just kind of like, God damn it, why are you so great?
Why? So the bad thing that happens is that her ex-girlfriend and her ex-girlfriend's wife come through.
Yeah, Jocelyn.
And we have this very awkward moment.
But it also leads to Naomi confessing how she's approached previous relationships and how she's run away. She said it before. She said it again, that she runs scared.
Yeah.
She was like, we were in a committed relationship for 2 years, and I ran scared whenever she tried to give me a ring. Mm-hmm. She tried to say, hey, I want to marry you. And she was looking at I think it was like engraved, and it was kind of like yesterday, tomorrow, always, or something like beautiful. Something really beautiful. And she saw that word always, it brought her back to her boyfriend, who said, I'll always love you. And he ended up by sharing pictures. And so she ran scared. And not only that, she took it to the extreme where she like packed up, left, and never talked to her again. So she was just like, I know I behaved abominably to her and stuff. And so she's confessing all of these demons to Ethan. And he just kind of
The cool thing was that Jocelyn, before they left, she leaned forward and she said, you look happy. I'm happy for you. Like
that was such a great moment. It was
sweet.
So good. It was such a good. I like whenever exes run into each other and it's not like a shit fest and stuff like that. It was just so good, and I like how this date turns into bagel bites at Ethan's house.
Bagel bites and masturbation tapes.
She jokingly says, like, you know, she laughs, and he was like, what's funny? Oh, well, whenever you suggested a movie, I immediately thought, like, well, why don't we watch them online?
Yeah, what video? He goes, what video you want to watch? I immediately think videos, like, you know, porn videos. Well, she's got, like, a sex ed video on their website on
self-pleasure.
On self-pleasure. And so there's a video of herself.
I love how she was like, if you want to see how I like to be touched, we could watch it. And he was like, is that a joke? Like, of course I want to know.
Like, pull it up. But y'all...
The sexual tension.
Holy
Ethan's like, wait, why did I think this was a good idea?
And it's not just torture for him, it's torture for her. Like, she's turned on because he's turned on, and like,
it's so great.
Oh my God.
It's so great. And it's like this vulnerable moment because nothing happens. They watch the video, they're both really turned on.
And then it's like, okay, time to go home. Like, they kiss.
It was an intimate moment without sex.
But I love as soon as she gets out the door and he closes it, he like jacks off immediately. He's like, I can't handle it. Poor Ethan.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And then the class finds out that they're dating. Because I love how they were just kind of like, hey, we want to know.
Yeah.
Are you dating anybody? Because if you are, like, do you employ all of these strategies? Mm-hmm. And she's like, I am currently dating someone, and we are employing these strategies. And they're like, oh my God, are you dating someone famous?
Celebrity? Is he like, you know, somebody we know?
And I love how Ethan and Naomi are kind of looking at each other like, okay, well, we don't want to hide this.
Yeah, she kind of gives him a nod.
And kind of like, it's okay. And I love how he's like, well, actually, I'm dating Miss Grant. And they're like, haha, sure.
So funny, Ethan.
And they were like, there's no way that you're dating her and stuff like that. And it honestly, there was a little bit of the judgment, even from the people who they've been very open and honest, and it was a safe space.
Like, but you're a rabbi, you can't date her. You know,
she's not even Jewish, and like, also, like, have you even met Josh? That's her ex, and she's once been on record saying it was the best sex ever. And I'm just like, why would you tell him that?
I was like,
do you like Ethan as a person?
I was so pissed when they said that. It hurt my feelings.
It did. I was like, I can't believe you told. Like, maybe it was the best sex for her at that time. That does not mean that she won't have better later.
And it's always better when you're in love. And like, and she even tells him when they do have sex, this is the best, you know?
And I think that that's also kind of like an important distinction as well, is that even when you're having like the best sex ever, having emotion for a certain person makes sex different, no matter if it's like the tender kind or if it's the I can't wait to get to bed, shove you against a wall and fuck you there type of thing. It's a different ball game that way.
When your emotions are involved.
So I really like it. And then they attend Josh and Clara's engagement party. And I love how like she's more nervous for him to meet her friends. Yeah. Because she's just kind of like, I have this reputation for being a hard ass,
and you make me all softy.
Mushy. And he's like, ew. Of course you wouldn't want people to think you're mushy. That sounds gross.
He's so cute.
He's so fucking cute.
And then that sounds uncomfortable. Look, everybody's getting wasted playing drinking games. She can't find him. He's in the kitchen doing the dishes.
Because he's like, I know how it is in the morning whenever you wake up and there's dishes you don't want to do. And he just like the best, honestly.
I cannot even with him.
But like the fact is he fit in with her group of friends. Like he was talking to somebody. He invited somebody to like play his saxophone or something for an upcoming event at the community center. Yeah. And it was just like, it was so freaking beautiful. And you could feel how vulnerable she's feeling. But also she's very attracted to Ethan. So she just kind of like, she gives him the like nod, like, hey, let's go to your house. Don't drop me off at my house. Like, let's go to your house. So she thinks she's ready for sex now.
This is an interesting scene.
So interesting. And so she's like gearing up. She's getting ready to go. And she's like, why am I feeling so nervous? Like, I'm not nervous. Like, this isn't any different. This is my element. I should be feeling so confident right now.
Like the sex goddess here. I should be able to do this. She's like talking herself up in the bathroom. Like,
and I love
you're going to go out there and you're going to do this, you know?
And I love how like she goes after Ethan and he knows something's wrong. He's like, wait.
Hey.
What's going on? What's going on? She's like, nothing. And he's like, are you not ready? And she's like, inexplicably, I am not ready to have sex.
Yeah. And
it turns into a cuddling session.
Oh my God.
And she's just kind of like, this is nice. And he's like playing with her hair and rubbing her back. Oh! And I'm just like,
stop it. Ethan,
I want to
why?
cry so much.
Why are you so beautiful?
He's like, it's okay. We can totally wait. Like, let's go at your own pace. And she's like, it's so weird to admit that this is what I needed and not sex. Where usually it's like, I don't understand. I am so attracted to him.
Involved. Like,
I don't understand why I can't have sex. And it's like, it's so much pressure because she knows that this is different. It is. I love it.
I thought it was perfect. I was like, this is brilliant.
I also love the moment where she's at work and Josh kind of points out like, oh, you forgot to do this. And she's like, damn it, I knew a relationship would mess with my work. And Josh has to calm her down, like talk her down, like, hey,
it's okay.
It's not your relationship. That's, you're not Superwoman. You cannot handle everything. We wanted to delegate about 20% of what you do to some people already. So like, we're just going to like make some adjustments, and it's okay that you want to spend time with him and that you want to spend a little bit of time away from work. Like our business is healthy enough where you don't have to like micromanage everything.
You know what was really sweet about this is like she hugged Josh, and apparently she had never hugged Josh. Like, and like then Clara walks in, and then she hugs him.
Yes,
and they like have a 3-way hug, and she's like, "I hate y'all guys so much."
It is the most beautiful thing. Like that's
sweet. Like, because she's never vulnerable with anyone, even with Josh, who's an ex-boyfriend, ex-lover on screen.
And Clara, who just kind of like, I want you to be my bestie. Will you be my maid of honor? Like, I know you're a prickly cactus, but I know you love me, even though you're not a person to like say, you love me. Like, I know you do. And I just love it. I just love it. I know. Naomi opening up to people in her life, not just Ethan, is a beautiful
It was.
thing
And that,
watch.
again, I think it brings this whole book like full circle about intimacy.
Yes.
Not just between romantic love interests, but just like your friends, those people you love, your sisters, your siblings, whatever,
Yes.
And so I think it's a lovely.
And we didn't talk very much about Ethan's because we circled around Naomi's issues, but Ethan also has some vulnerabilities because he feels like after his father's death, he threw himself into religion and faith. At first, it was just kind of like a studying kind of thing because he's very academic and he likes being a student. But then he fell into actually becoming a rabbi. But he also, I love how every time he goes to his mom's house, because his mom and his sister don't really practice Judaism. It was the father who was a little bit more religious. And
he doesn't want Shabbat or something, and they're kind of clumsy with the ceremony, and he has to sort of
like they're trying to do stuff that he would want to do, but I love how he just kind of like, I don't want the people in my life to feel uncomfortable about it. Like, I feel bad that they feel like they have to do something that they're uncomfortable with around me because I'm a rabbi. And so he has his own struggles with that. And like, his mom's
she's
the CEO
of
for like this huge agency for all the stars.
Like, Naomi was like, oh my God.
You're royalty.
You're royalty.
You're Hollywood royalty.
Like, what the hell, dude? Because he lives in this like humble little bungalow house in Santa Monica. But I love that also, because he does talk about how he has some weaknesses as well. He's afraid that he won't be enough for Naomi because his life also are the congregants, the congregation. And so
sometimes he stays overnight.
Yes, like he has to stay overnight for the homeless shelter people come and like,
and he says he's not good with details. He forgets things.
To text,
he's forgetful
and he's late.
Exactly. And so he feels bad because he feels like he's not bringing enough to the relationship. So that's like some things that some baggage they're both carrying, that they're not enough in their relationship. And so it's vulnerability for them. Then we have the lecture that's actually talking about like sex. Yeah. And we get to the point where,
of course, it leaks to the media somehow. And so you have all these assholes and protesters show up. It is a giant shit show.
And Ethan, the same way how he got so offended with that guy basically saying, show me your tits at the bar, it's just kind of like, I'm sorry this is happening to you. Like, I don't know how they got in. And she's just kind of like, I'm going to leave this up to you. Like, apparently security is going to be called. I'm just going to continue doing my lecture. And it was so sweet because like Molly was like, Miss Grant, are you sure you're okay? And she was kind of like, I was just like, Craig goes guard the door.
Guys go guard the door. Oh, so cute.
So good. It was so good. I loved it. And I love, I mean, like, the book is 1,000% worth it for all of her lectures too, because they're just like so good. But that's also a moment, kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back.
So after this night, for some reason, him like coming to her defense again, she's like, I'm ready now. Like,
and she tells a story about the cat.
Yo, this is my favorite fucking thing ever in the book. She tells a story about a cat and a soft boy. And the cat keeps like scratching and biting and hissing at the soft boy. The soft boy continues to be nice and sweet to the cat.
Y'all. immediately, when I was reading this book, one of the only other people who read this book while I was reading this book was Jen, because she reads everything.
Yeah.
And so I was like, Ethan's such a soft boy. And I said that from the beginning. And so whenever she was telling the story about the cat and the soft boy, I'm like, he is a soft boy. I'm like, I love him so much.
Oh my God.
So much. And I love how,
He goes,
oh my
I don't
God,
want to
this
be a
is so
soft
great.
boy. Poor
I
Ethan.
love how she goes, you know, when she got older, she met a new boy and he was the softest boy in the whole world. And he goes, oh, please, I am not. And she goes, he pretended he wasn't that soft, but the cat knew better because he let her hiss at him on occasion. And he kept saying things like, I think you're a great cat, maybe the best cat. I haven't met them all, but I have this hunch. And Ethan goes, you didn't say this story was going to be embarrassing for me. She's like, I'm almost done. The cat liked this soft boy. So when he tried to hold her and be kind to her, she wanted to let him. At first, she didn't always know how. She spent so many years fighting, but he was patient and he showed her he wouldn't hurt her even when she was cruel to him. So she grew a little softer herself.
Perfect.
Absolutely love it.
Perfect.
And
it's perfect.
It leads to their first sex scene. And boy, let me tell you, you think that Ethan being a beta means that he doesn't know how to dirty talk. And let me disabuse you of that notion.
Yes.
Because Ethan comes out the woodworks with very sexy talk, just letting you say.
I love it.
And like
so much.
You had mentioned earlier that when they first had sex that she was enjoying herself, but she also started to be worried because she was just like, she's making a lot of noise and stuff, and she wants to let him know, like, hey, I just want to let you know I'm not faking any of this.
Like,
it was a vulnerable moment because she was just kind of like, just because I was a performer, like, I don't want him to think that I'm faking.
Performing.
Yeah, exactly.
That I'm performing for him. You know?
Ethan goes, I know I earned those fucking whimpers, Naomi Grant. Just so we're clear, when you're coming on my cock, we're both going to know why. And I'm just like, Ethan! Ethan!
I reread that one. I was like,
Ethan!
Oh, so awesome.
Hello!
Y'all, when the soft boy goes hot, what?
Beautiful. What? Absolutely beautiful. I mean, like, this book is fucking perfection. Okay?
It is so good. So then... Oh, listen to it. So, you just said.
This is around the same time that the next lecture is kind of like how to talk to your partner about having a future together. Like, what is the next step in your relationship?
Next
and
stage.
I love how this is the one that they kind of fumble because they've kind of been going in tandem with the lectures and they've been, you know, doing really well with the steps of intimacy. But this is the one where they're having a conversation in the morning. Ethan's a little distracted because the board of directors want an emergency meeting and stuff.
Yeah.
And she's kind of like hinting at like, well, where do you see this going? Like, do you see this for the long haul? And also talking about like the future of the intimacy lectures. And he just kind of like,
he's like, I didn't see
kind of like, I thought it was like, we'll see. Cause he's being very wary, knows that the ball is about to, you know, drop with that whole thing.
Right.
And also we find out later that he was downplaying, like he didn't want to scare her because of her story about commitment and how she ran away with Jocelyn.
Yeah.
He was afraid to admit how much he wanted her in his life, how he wanted to wake up with her every morning and like sees a future marrying her because he didn't want to scare her away. But it was also, she was looking for that reassurance. She's like, of course, the one time I want the always word, like I'm expecting it, he doesn't give it. And so it was a little bit of miscommunication right here.
But I think that's like very expected. Like I can totally believe this kind of miscommunication.
Yes.
You know.
And
like,
then Ethan has the meeting with the board.
Right. So then we have the meeting with the board. And of course Jonathan is like, they basically tell him, not only do you have to fire Mrs. Grant and cease and desist these seminars, but you have to break up with her because you cannot be seen with a former porn star, basically.
We'll give you a week to wrap up your affairs with her.
And
like,
I loved this scene because Ethan's like, okay,
I don't need a week.
I don't need a week. And he starts to walk out and he's like, oh, wait. And he goes back, I quit. And then leaves. I'm like, yes, Ethan, you tell these fuckers.
Like, there's a no-brainer. I'm going to choose Naomi over this ultimatum. Like, you have no say on my personal life. And if this is how you're treating me, like, our attendance has been at an all-time high. Like, don't tell me that something, like, these methods that he's using, he's progressive in his methods. And he's using unconventional methods. And we know that stuff that's new is scary for people to, like, be like, oh, no, we're adopting this new method and stuff like that. And Ethan just kind of like, it's worth trying. And like, they just don't want to even try, even though it's producing results.
Right.
They still are just kind of like the optics.
And they even mentioned kind of that Jonathan's like been on the board for 30 years. And not to say that all old people just have old ideas, because that's not always true. You have older people who are very open. But it's just
like a representation of like, basically what happens.
Right. They don't want to let go of that tradition. Even though it's a Reformed Judaism, they still are like sort of like holding on to, like, they can't, I guess, bend that far to be that progressive.
And like, I also kind of, it breaks my heart that Naomi gave her lecture. Usually Ethan's there, and she's kind of relied on him to look at him, not for reassurance, but just kind of like, oh, Ethan's here. It just makes her feel better. And so she's giving this lecture, and he's not here because she was at the meeting and then never even came late, like just went back to his house. And
so she knows
something's weird, goes to the house, and he comes out and says it. And he was just like, you know, I'm no longer the rabbi. Mm-hmm. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he was like, I quit. And she was like, it's because of me. We knew this would happen. And so I can't believe they fired you. Like, they're going to have to take you back. You go beg them. Like, we'll be done. And he's like, what? I'm not breaking up with you. And she was like, oh yeah, you're right. It's better if I do it.
Because he says, I'm not breaking up with you. I'm in love with you. I love you.
And I love her response is just ignore it. Like, just be like,
oh, okay. Well,
I'm going to break up with you now. Okay.
So I'll make it easier.
Yeah.
So sad.
And like, he's so sad because he's just like, he just told her, I love you. And she's just kind of like, and we know she's doing it because she's like, I'm not going to be the one to take him away from something that he's so passionate about. And this is so much a part of who he is. Like, he had asked her earlier, would you prefer it if I had another job?
If I was someone
and she's
different.
like, that would like be like asking, I want you to be a different person.
Right.
Like, it's so wrapped up in your identity that no, of course not. Mm-hmm. And so she's just kind of like, I'm not willing for him to make that sacrifice for me. So I'm going to make this sacrifice for him. And so she goes to do her high school.
Yeah, Clara sort of tricks her into going back.
Signed her up behind her back.
And I love it. So she gets closure on this. And she gives a great, and so funny because she's doing the seminar on breaking up. And so she talks about like her whole experience.
That was such a great.
Which was really like
She was talking about the steps that she goes through to make herself feel better for a breakup. And so she's basically telling them what she's been doing for the past couple days. Do these aromatics in the stovetop. This is not to drink. This is just to inhale and like wake up your senses. You won't always feel this numb. Follow your feet out to nature, like, you know, and just like lay down and embrace it. And I love how like the transformation at first, like the auditorium shocked because she's just supposed to be talking about sex education, but she's actually giving the final seminar for the intimacy lectures.
Right.
And I love how eventually kids start like taking out notebooks and pens
like
and writing it down. And like one girl's like crying because she's like talking about, you know, how it's so heartbreaking whenever you feel like you love somebody and it doesn't work out, and like just talking about dealing with that. And like everybody, even an adult, goes through these types of things. And it was such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful scene. And I also love how Ethan has a talk with his sister, and Leah is just kind of like, you should have fought for her.
You should have.
You should have fought. And he's like, I should have fought for her. What? I love how he's just like, he knows. And so I think it's funny. He sends out an email, and he's going to do the last talk as well.
Right, at the bar, because they can't do it at the community center now.
And so he's hoping that she shows up. And she's not there.
I think, did Leah or somebody call her? Somebody told her where it was. Or did he?
He sent the email.
Yeah, he sent the email to her, hoping she was to be there. That's right. And so, of course, she's not there at first. He doesn't see her. And so he starts talking. And so he starts talking about breaking up and like all of these other things, and about love and what it means to truly love someone, and basically pouring out his feelings for her.
When he says one of the best things, and this is whenever Naomi shows up, he goes, one of the best things about love, real love, is that it doesn't demand perfection. It simply invites us to live up to our potential. And I'm just like, I love it so much, because they're like, we're imperfect and we're going to do some stupid things sometimes. But if you really want it, then you have to accept those imperfections about yourself and about the person who you're in love with and stuff. Yeah. And it's just so beautiful, because she's just like, I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here. Yeah. Like, continue your lecture.
I know. And the cool thing is that Ira is there. Ira's on the board. She was one of the members who really, like, we see interacting with Ethan a lot, like respecting what he's doing and everything. And basically we're like, well, we can't hire you back because we don't have a full board because Jonathan quit.
Resigned because there was an outcry. There was a petition signed protesting his resignation.
Yes.
Had more than 2,000 signatures, and they were also talking about reinstating the intimacy seminars.
Yes.
The board was, and Jonathan did not like the direction that was going, so he resigned. And I think Ira's going to be the new head of the board. And so they were like, we would like you back once this is all settled and stuff like that. And it was just such a beautiful.
It was lovely.
I love how Naomi's just kind of like, I think you should go back. Because at first he was just kind of like, I don't know if I want to. They hurt me by, trying to, censor our relationship and stuff. And she was just like, sometimes you just have to forgive and move on because...
You know what was really cool, too, is she also said, it's not just about you, though. It's about all those other people who need you. And that's, like, really pulling on Ethan because that's why he loves the job. He loves connecting with people and caring for people and helping people. And so it's just like,
it's so true. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Then we have a little epilogue. I love how it's like, it's Josh and Claire's wedding, but there's no scenes at the wedding. It's like them just hanging out at night.
At the cabin. Airbnb or whatever. And it's just them being intimate and sweet.
And
he's like enticing her by sticking his ass in the air.
Like he's trying to like start a fire.
Starting the fire.
The fire in her loins.
Yeah, he's teasing. I love it. He's teasing her like seductively. It was
and we find out that they're currently engaged to be married. And it's just such a beautiful ending.
It was.
I love it so much.
It's beautiful. Very sweet.
Gorgeous. So what is your showdown?
Okay, so I had to think about this a lot, but I finally decided the kiss in the shed, the first kiss, because it was
after the baseball game.
Yes. Well, the baseball game I just loved so much, and I had all these giddy feelings, and then when he just is like, "I'm obsessed with you," and then they have all that tension, and then it's all let out in the shed, and then they kiss, and
it was
just
so
like
good.
Gorgeous.
It is good, and I love how it like turns from like a funny moment that's a little dramatic to like an accidental kind of confession that I've been obsessed with you to
kissing.
It's so good.
Yeah, it was great.
So my showdown is very similar. It's actually the beach scene right after.
Yes. I kind of thought that would be yours.
I cried during the scene. How could it not be my showdown
beautiful.
scene? The outpouring from Ethan and also like the vulnerability from Naomi too, because she's just like, are you sure you want this with me? Me? Like the way that she saw herself as a hindrance to him and he just like, of course I want you. And it's just like, it was so good. It was so good. I could reread that scene all the time.
It was great.
All right, guys. Well, we hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and we look forward to the next one where we'll be discussing Devil's Bride by Stephanie Lawrence. Thanks so much for listening.
This goes out to all the fangirls.
Life's better with a little HEA.